I have to probe you a little bit on the lending because this really is, icing on the cake here. And so, in traditional DeFi lending, I think a lot of people are familiar with this. You provide your assets on the supply side, and you have the ability to borrow at a certain, loan to value ratio on the other side, whether it's 70%, 80%, depending on the asset being put up as collateral. And I was asking you kind of before we started this, how the loans work. And you had a really interesting answer that I was not expecting. And would you mind sharing with us a little bit more on the loans specifically and how we're kind of integrating something that hasn't been done before?
What the question you teased that, where you get those funds, you could get it from a traditional, banking institution, for example. So a traditional bank can lend against it, and they could lend US dollars or euros against Bitcoin, for example, and they probably will have a ratio, given potential volatility. But in a lot of cases, like in that theft example, you lock up Bitcoin and then you want access to the Bitcoin early. The bank can lend Bitcoin against your Bitcoin, and then it's 1-to-1, and there's no risk from the bank's point of view. And if there's no risk and it's just a matter of timing, then all you're really paying for as a consumer borrowing the assets, you're just paying for the conveniency of that timing, and that's not that expensive, right? And so there's not a lot of there's no risk from the bank's point of view, lending 1-to-1, and it's just a matter of time until you get the asset. If the loan isn't paid off, if it goes into default and you have to collect on the collateral. And so it just ends up being a nice solution. How do people make money on it? Why does this create value for Devve? Why is this such an exciting thing for what Devve means? And to me, this overall system creates the most useful token in existence. This is more useful than ETH as gas. This is more useful than Bitcoin as a storage system. This creates an overall token system where you can use it to transfer any asset in any other asset. So it becomes the money of money. It therefore also becomes a very strong storage system. It also has mechanisms that let you borrow off of contributions where you're making revenue off of it, and it lets you share in the revenue of the overall growth of the exchange. And then the more these assets that go in, the more liquidity you have, the more the exchange grows, which creates more opportunity for bigger liquidity pools, which creates more revenue. And so all of it together just makes Devve, again, to me, the most useful token in history, right, in existence.